Hello everyone, welcome back to Soccer Showdown. Joe Archino here as always with my main man Martino Puccio. And World Cup fever is in the air. 32 teams are confirmed. We are very excited, but also a little bit disappointed because one of the usual suspects will not be in the 2018 World Cup in Russia, and that is Italy. And I think it comes as to a big surprise to many. But Martino, last week we talked about Italy. We talked about the qualifying match they had to go through to get through Sweden to enter the 2018 World Cup. We talked about the slim possibility if they did not win. Well, they didn't, and now we're here dealing with the aftermath. First of all, Martino, it's the first time since 1958 that Italy is not going to be in the World Cup playing. What's your initial reaction? How did it go wrong? Just give it all to me.
Yeah, this is a complete disaster. This was probably the worst experience I ever had as a sports fan. Take into account the expectations for this team, right? They're four-time World Cup winners. They have the talent to not only go to the World Cup, even make a deep run, considering that. Talent, right? You start there. Gianpiero Ventura didn't call up the right guys. How many times did we have to go over this? Jorginho should have been starting a while ago. Marco Verratti was just an absolute disaster. He doesn't call up Balotelli. Even people were making calls for Jovinko to start as well, or even get a call up. He doesn't do that. Insigne, probably their best player, playing for Italy, most talented guy. Where is he during this playoff? He's in there for 10 minutes. He puts him in at center mid position. I guess he put him in there because he's around the same height as Verratti. What are they, 5'5", 5'6"? I guess that was his reasoning for that. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. You saw Insigne go on the field. He's like, what the hell am I doing here? They're like, where are you playing? Oh, center mid. Oh, here's a spot right here. Yeah, I don't know, man. And then you don't see him play in the second leg? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's a disaster. And then he starts Gabbiadini, who doesn't even deserve to sniff the jersey in the first place. Belotti should have been in there. I know he missed a close chance in Sweden, but you got to put your best guys forward like that. And it's absolutely pathetic. And the fact that he has the audacity to come off camera afterwards and say, oh, I had one of the best records in 40 years. Yeah, but you're the first guy in about 60 years not to take this team to the World Cup. That's how awful you are. He's synonymous with losing. It's just a complete disaster. This is worse than 2010, 2014, even 2016 when they were doing awful in the finals. This is awful. We talked about how they ruined a generation of fans to miss out on for the USA when they missed the World Cup. This isn't even anything close like that. This is like a religion to them. This is all that they have. And the fact that they're not even going there is mind-numbing. Because it's not going to hit us now. It's going to hit us back in June when they're like, oh, we got Brazil as a favorites, France as a favorites. Where's Italy? Oh, they're not there. They might be in some NIT-type tournament with Chile, Netherlands, and the USA if they want to. It's a complete waste of some of the players that are near their prime right now, because we talk about how Pulisic is missing the experience as a young kid. What do you think about some of these guys? Gianluigi Buffon is done. That was his last game for Italy, the best keeper of all time. The best player in his position is not going to the World Cup because some stubborn guy wasn't able to put it forward the right people. And then we could go to Carlo Tavecchio, who appointed Ventura as a manager. By hiring Conte a couple of years ago, he only hid part of the problem, getting a coach to make up for some of the crap players that were there. Now you had Ventura literally exposing all these terrible players. Barzagli didn't deserve to touch the field. I mean, look at it. How many times did I have to see misplaced passes by this guy who's 35, 36 years old, who can't even outrun Mike Demergis, who runs the media over here, okay? I'm almost sure of that. And then, I mean, how many times do we have to look at it? I mean, there's so much talent that's being wasted on the bench. It's a complete disaster, and they don't deserve to make it. Tavecchio should lose his job. He should have resigned. It took Ventura yesterday just to get fired because he wanted a severance package. Take your $700,000 and enjoy watching the World Cup on the couch because you're a clown and you're a loser, and that's all you're going to be known as for the rest of your life.
I'm going to give this guy a break for now, but I think it's very interesting. You know, we've talked on this show many times about the USA not making it and how it's a very big disappointment over here. But, you know, to us, soccer is a sport that's growing, and certainly there's a lot of people who care deeply about it. But in Italy, it's a way of life. It's something you almost can't explain what it's going to mean for Italy not to be in the World Cup. I'm going to go off script here for a minute, Martino, because I want to stay on this for a minute, but who is going to come in and be the savior of this situation? You know, we've always been very suspect of the current leadership there, but who is going to come in there and turn things around for Italy? Carlo Ancelotti is a name that's been floating around for a while. Is he maybe a guy who, look, very proud Italian guy, comes in, looks at this mess and says, I have to fix this?
Well, he should have been hired a while ago. After that game where Ventura fielded 2 midfielders against Spain, right? Arguably the best midfield in the world. Oh, let's match their midfield with 2 guys while they have 4 or 5 world-class players. That'll go well, right? No, it didn't. They got their you-know-what beat down. Sorry, I'm trying not to curse. So that happened, and I mean, you get Ancelotti. Yeah, he's a great manager, but that only puts a Band-Aid on the wound. It's not going in and actually stitching it up and letting it heal over time. Tavecchio's still there. The problem still resides there. They need to change up everything from the bottom to the top. There is talent there. There's guys like Pellegrini, if Diawara from Napoli would decide to choose to play for the Italian national team. There's Locatelli. You have Donnarumma on the bench who's going to be the heir apparent to Gianluigi Buffon. So, I mean, there's guys there. They're not putting it best foot forward. How many times do we have to say, in any sport in general, specifically soccer, you got to let the young guys play to learn from their experience? Where are all these young guys? Barzagli's 35. Chiellini's in his mid to late 30s. I mean, how many times are we fielding guys like this? Verratti was supposed to be the guy to fill in for Pirlo, who was in his late 30s. You're depending on him. You can't keep depending on players like this. Bring on the young guys. Let them play. Let them learn. Get better like that. But they don't do it. And Tavecchio's still there. I'm not convinced it's going to get fixed. Ancelotti will make things better for a little bit, but how much can he really do if it's not a strip from the top down? All right? So, I mean, that's where you can look for it, but you got to get other guys like Albertini, Paolo Maldini's in there. There's Fabio Cannavaro. There's brilliant minds. We talk about the best coaches in the world are Italian coaches. Why are our players not that talented? It doesn't add up, and it needs to be fixed almost immediately.
Italy is not the only big upset to not make it to the World Cup. There's also the United States, there's Netherlands, and there's Chile. So certainly, Martino, when we look at who's in it, those are some big names, those 4 I just gave you. When you look at them, which one to you is the most shocking that they will not be in the 2018 World Cup in Russia?
I'm keeping my foot on the pedal. It's still Italy. I mean, this is like the biggest disgrace here. You know how many World Cups those other countries have? 0. They have 4 on their own. How pathetic is it? I mean, where do we start? I mean, they had the greatest defenders of all time. They had the greatest keeper of all time. Somehow they only managed to get out of the group stage once when Buffon was like, it's so bad. This is such a disaster. I've never in my life experienced anything like this as my fan. Okay? My mom and dad never saw Italy in the World Cup. This is the first time they're experiencing it. 1958, Mickey Mantle was still hitting home runs for the Yankees. Dwight Eisenhower was in the Oval Office. Are you kidding me? What a disaster. I've never seen anything like it in my life. They haven't fixed it. I mean, the Netherlands, there's a lack of talent coming up, right? You could point there. Chile, it's a difficult qualifying where they are. They haven't gotten the talent that they needed. But they don't have the same reputation. We've talked about the USA on here before. They don't have the coaching. They don't have the right guys running it. And they certainly don't have the talent coming up. Italy has almost all of that stuff. The resources are there. The fact that their expectations are that high and they can't even scratch the surface of it. The fact that you don't even qualify for it. This isn't even about not making it out of the group stage the past 2 World Cups. The fact that you're not even there is a testament to how awful this is and that the wound's going to hurt for a while. This isn't going to go away until they make a deep run or maybe even win the World Cup the next time. It's that bad.
Let's talk about another wound. The Team USA, it's been about a month since they knew that they would not be going to the 2018 World Cup in Russia with their loss to Trinidad and Tobago. And just the other day, their 19-year-old superstar Christian Pulisic, he penned a very powerful, profound letter to the Players Tribune talking about his experience so far, talking about how much the loss hurt, but also talking about his goals for the future and how he's very excited for that future. So Martino, we will put the link to the article in the description here, but I think his words were very, very telling. What did you make of his suggestions? One of the things he did talk about was, for Team USA, which is obviously trying to build players for the future, he believes that 16 to 18-year-old window is a peak period for young players. But Martino, you read the letter. What did you make of it?
I thought Christian had some good points. I mean, we talked about all the time the lack of talent, and who better to ask than the most talented player that USA has ever had? What did we do right with him? What was going right with Christian Pulisic that we missed on other guys like Freddie Adu or Julian Green? I mean, because there's been some big misses. I mean, I just saw on Old Takes Exposed, it's a Twitter account, and they were showing there was a match between Freddie Adu and Messi back then, and they were talking about how Freddie Adu was around the teenager years that Christian Pulisic was referring to, and they were talking about how Messi was doing better in certain areas, but Freddie Adu was so good. But what happened in that time between 14 and 18 that Freddie Adu wasn't doing that Messi was? Not saying that it really was the same talent level, but why was there such a dramatic drop-off between the two? Why hasn't the USA been able to produce that? I mean, we talked about the gap before. I mean, Clint Dempsey, early 30s, early to mid-30s. Where's the guy in between? We don't have anything until Christian Pulisic, who's still a teenager. I thought it was telling about his experience about being able to get the best coaches. And he talked about how he had to work his tail off. He didn't refer to himself as the most talented player. He was just talking about, oh yeah, I was one of the average guys. But the level of competition that he was describing when he went to Europe, how much better it was the average player compared to over here. And I played with guys over here as well that have come from another country, Europe specifically. They come over here, they're outstanding compared to everyone else, and everyone's asking, oh, how are you so good? He's like, I'm nothing back at home. I'm just an average player. I don't stand out. So it's clearly telling on what's going on over here. We don't have the same resources. We don't have the same coaching. But we got one, right? And if we can get one, I think we can get others. And I think if we listen to Christian just a little bit, take apart what he was saying, because I mean, passports don't work that way. You have your dual citizenship to Croatia, so that's just you. Not other guys aren't as fortunate, but I thought it was telling how at 16 years old, he talked about the opportunity he had to go over there. I think we start our guys too young. Too many players are going to college. Meanwhile, you're from 18 to 22 in college. Guys like that are already dominating on Europe. We talked about some of them just before. We saw Messi scoring a hat trick in the Bernabeu. So it's something that we could look at. It's something we could take note of. But at the same time, it's going to be a while. Not everyone's going to be a Christian Pulisic. And I think we need to relax on the expectations a little bit. But I think it's important to have someone so young really talk about what needs to be done or what he sees.
Nothing brings out the passion more than talking about the World Cup, and we are just getting closer and closer, and it will get better and better day by day. That is it for this episode of Soccer Showdown, everyone. As always, Martino Puccio and Joe Archino. We'll see everybody in the next episode.